will take our position of honor, please.
The position of honor?
Position of honor. Not the position, not the position, a position of honor.
Do we need to slide back here, or okay, you'll holler?
Ladies and gentlemen and honored guests, I would like to introduce the Maddenaires, who will take us on a sentimental journey. The Maddenaires are Lieutenant Jill Gabler, Lieutenant Catherine Winterbauer, and Brenda Rarick.
Where's the dynamite?
sent a picture to John earlier. It's on the table up here, so those of you who want to look at it later can stop by and take a look at it. It will be displayed up here. John, will you please come forward and resume your seat? We'll save a little bit of travel money here, pushing you back and forth to the table here while we go through this. No, you can sit right over there in the chair. We'll take it easy on your old bones. Dick?
Yeah, I know.
Dick Word from ENA will make the first presentation.
Colonel John Madden, Chief Mate, and very successful man you are, and I understand it's been rumored that the way you achieved this position was that you live by the motto, fall in the right place at the right time. I understand there was a big dilemma in your life back when you were deputy chief engineer for the F-16 office. Where do I go next? It turned out that you thought that flying airplanes was a pretty hefty job, a lot of effort, a lot of power, a lot of effort to get that airplane up there. And but things like Madden missiles, all you had to do is let them drop and you would fall. And naturally, all you do is hit the right place and you'd be successful. So you got the Maverick missile off and you found out, well, that's not all the case. I need a little guidance thrown in there. So you found out there were such things as avionics, even seekers, those types of things to get that thing to fall in the right place at the right time. And so there you went on to become another assignment, but then finally back to the B-1 program office where you found out, again, now I can take on this bigger challenge. I keep things up. And you found out also you need the avionics as well. You got things to do the thing it should be doing. Flight mission, get the engine, and, taking on bigger and bigger challenges, well, that's not all that bad. So you took on more than one airplane. You went over to SD. You got the Air Force One, a few other programs. Again, those things sound good. They can fly in more holes in the sky. But if I don't have avionics, I'm not going to do much. But then you got the wife teaching avionics. And then going through these systems, geez, I can take on this big task of running in. I know it all now. Again, here we are. You found out avionics is a big part of the end. So with all that avionics background, we feel like maybe it's appropriate that we now make you an honorary avionics member. So with that thought in mind, we'd like to give you our avionics plaque. Thank you.
Hey.
I don't know if I can think of anything to say or not. I'm an honorary avionicer, and the avionics group is very near and dear to my heart. They're the ones that make the airframe have a job, right? They carry the avionics.
John, you're up next. ENE will be up next. Lieutenant Colonel John Vogel.
I had the opportunity last week to play golf with Madden. We certainly had a lot of fun. It was his farewell golf tournament, and I thought to myself, gee, if he's going to have his own golf tournament, he's probably pretty good. Likes to play golf and enjoys the Latin. No, I was wrong. He has good foursome, though. John Cantrell and myself, we play once, maybe twice a year. Found out John Madden plays once a year during his tournament. When he usually expects to win, And his wife, Barbara, was the first time she played. She had a great time, learned to drive the cart very well, and had a good time. The foursome that was behind us, though, we had a little trouble since we were spraying ball all over the place. Fred Rawl and Ted Lynch were behind us, and I'll tell you, they didn't give us any slack at all. Every time we turned around, they were standing there like this. Guys, hurry up. But we did have a good time, and thank God we survived the golf. You know, when you're out looking for a job, when you get ready to retire, one of the things the experts tell you to do is make sure that you have a resume that's tailored to the job that you want. So I think we have right here the perfect solution. You want to open it? Yeah. What we have, maybe you can't see it in the back, but what we have is a picture for every resume. Every type of job that you can think of, you have a different picture right here. Right down here is my favorite. It looks like hippie John Madden. There's a peace sign down here. And here's John Madden, coal miner. We got one up here, Disco Madden. Anyway, you can either hang this on your wall or cut a picture and use on your resume. Oh, whatever you want.
This one gets bigger.
This one is a little bit different. Legion of Merit, by the way, which you were awarded today, that is it. The one we ranked General Person gave it, we stole from everyone who know it. Anyway,
Thank you very much.
congratulations.
Mr. Smithers from DNF.
John, this is our chance to get even with you.
Oh, yeah.
What can I say?
Come on, Les.
You know, normally it's traditional for ENF, as Director of Flight Systems Engineering, to give departing dignitaries an honorary plaque for being a flight systems engineer. But John tried to keep it a secret. Back in 1980, 81, and 82, he was a flight systems engineer. So please don't be disappointed we can't give you that plaque. We looked around to see what could we do since we couldn't give you a plaque, and we decided that a man of your caliber deserved to have a building named after him. So we decided we were going to name building 125 after you. I don't know who said that, but when I went up to Africa and I talked to the commander there, he said, John who? They shared a building with us. Then I went to DISAM, who also was in the building, and they said the same thing, John who? And then, this is really going to upset you, you know, ENS, Systems Engineering, and Manufacturing, E&M, is also in Building 125. And I said, you know, what about name this building after him? And they said, John, why? But fear not, there is another building that only Flight Systems Engineering owns. That's a building that, when I came up there a couple of years ago, my #1 priority was to get rid of that. And every time I thought I had successfully given that building the right labs, John interfered and we got it back. Now, had I known that I was going to be doing the right labs, I wouldn't have tried to do that. But nevertheless, he succeeded in keeping the building. So, Steve, would you take that over to John? I don't want to touch it. Here is a picture of the John C. Madden Memorial Fuel Test Facility, also known as Building 42, the ugliest building on base. Now, be careful, John, because that frame actually came out of Building 42. And the stuff, that's the sign that was in there. And the stuff that looks like dust on the front,
Yeah.
it's not dust. That's mercury. That is asbestos etching. It's from years of asbestos
Sure,
spraying.
that's building to look in years.
We spruced it up so it would look like that. By the way, did you notice that black stuff?
Yeah.
Fuel cell, that's not what you think it is. That's runoff from the Wright Lab parking lot. So, we're not through yet.
Should I sit down?
Sit down, yeah. Does this work?
Yeah.
You know, once we got the building named after it, we decided to clean it up to make it more appropriate. Well, we ran into a lot of trouble. First thing, we wanted to clean it out, the EPA wouldn't allow us to take the stuff out of there and dump it anywhere. And then the Historical Society got involved. They said a lot of things in that building were of great historical value. Steve, why don't you come over here? We'll give some of this stuff. So what they told us was that we would have to get a custodian to take care of all that historical artifacts. So since the building's named after you, first, that used to go around the barrels of asbestos. In fact, we got to take care of that. Now, we did a lot of, we could never decide what's the best, blue foam, orange foam, or yellow foam. This has great historical value. You've got to guard this with your life. Now, we had two of these this morning. But Steve let the sunlight get on them. It disappeared. So here's great historical value. This is the aptitude that was used to determine the fuel flow for the KC-135 tanker. And John, this has got such great value, the museum is probably going to try to get it away from you. And then last but not least, these are two signs that you got to put in your front yard. Get there and that's a lot of trouble. We had a lot of fun with you, John, but now on a more serious note, you know, a guy who went to a small unaccredited college in Cincinnati with some questionable classmates, and all we can say is that's been a remarkable journey.
Does this blow up?
No, that's
What is it? They put Mylar on it. What's that?
whatever you do, don't lick your hands.
This is the book, The Remarkable Journey. Now, my deputy had one of these on his desk that was given to him by somebody. somebody. I guess I had to wait for my return. It's called The Remarkable Journey, right for Field Heritage in Photograph. Is that radioactive?
You know, I was watching, I'm going to give the E&M presentation, manufacturing presentation. I was watching you golf the other day also, and I tell you what, I was absolutely astounded. I mean, he's such a great golfer. He loves the game. But I was looking in his bag. I mean, you guys saw his bag, right? You looked at his clubs. Those clubs, I swear, they must have come from some unknown Scottish rite. I mean, most people with wooden shaft golf clubs have them hanging over their mantle. But not John. He considers that the age of his sticks mellow and improve his game. So that's what he did. He has a lot of fun with it. But we really appreciate his help and his guidance for all of us as we in the manufacturing group a couple of years ago were not in this austere group. We were in the business side of the house with contracts, and one in the back. And due to our technical nature, we got merged with our engineering brethren, and now we're a technical team. And in the process of doing that, we were given a lot of grief because there's a wall in the front office that has little shields from each of the different directorates. You know, E&A has little sparks going off of theirs, and E&F, they've got little wings and things like that on their structures. And so to harass us for not having representation on the wall, every week we would walk in and a different thing would show up on the wall. You know, a bozo picture one week, you know, and things like that. So we finally got tired of it, and we had a little contest, and we came up with a design. And let me explain the design to you, because you're getting the first ever presentation of our plaque, okay? And you know what the cost of the first ever article is. T1. General Fenn can tell you how much T1 costs. Okay? This plaque has the process captured on it, from the idea to the manufacturing process to the product flying away, from the computer-aided graphics and design to the machine tool on the floor to the product going off of the flight line. And it says to Colonel John Madden, thanks from your friends at E&M. You want to notice one other thing. This is a cogged wheel, and that represents our industrial connection, because we are the part of the world that is tied directly to the shop floor in all the machinery that goes on out there. We're the people who are tied on everyone's behalf, representing all of us in transferring the knowledge and the information to the subcontractors who are really the people who have all the cost in our systems. And so that's our contribution and our contribution to you. Next up will be, let's see, E&S, Mr. Seaman. E&S is last again.
Hey, we're the best, Eric, the best.
Many of you probably realize that the E&S home office is just in a bit of disarray right now. You know, we lost our acting technical director, our acting director. You know,
John Halpin's gone off to be chief engineer for EN, which is great. Our acting deputy is on TDY, spending the rest of our TDY funds right now. And, you know, we wanted to buy something real nice for John, so we tried to take up a collection. We didn't get him money. So we couldn't buy him anything. And maybe it doesn't matter because, to tell you the truth, we never liked him that much. I lied about most of that. Actually, we do like John. In fact, we like him a lot. Of all the directors that any of us could remember in our memory, that since we've been here, he's the only director that we can recall that spent a lot of time in SPOs, actually working in engineering jobs. And some of them, believe it or not, in systems engineering. 4 different SPOs. So we do have 2 things for John that we'd like to present to him. First thing is the much coveted and sought after EMS plaque. You know, folks have actually faked retirement when they're trying to get it. But that's not all. We have another nice gift. While John's opening this, I'd like to tell you a little bit about it. This past year, our ENTQ team put together a TQ process handbook. And John encouraged this a lot, and he signed it up front along with John Griffin. And right up front in that handbook, there's a page that talks about teamwork. And it has a representation of a flock of geese flying with some words that talk about teamwork and how the geese benefit from flying together in formation. And we knew that John sort of liked that. So what we did, and you'll see here in a minute, we bought John a clock. And on the face of the clock are those words from the process handbook with the flock of geese. And the batteries come with it, they're right there. So it really works, it's not a toy.
It's going backwards.
No, it's a real clock, it runs the right way. I'm not going to try to read those words to you, but later on, if some of you come by and look at the gifts, you might want to take a look at those words. John, the best of luck to you. You've been a good friend to engineering, and you've been a good engineer.
Thank you.
We can't forget our friends from Kirtland who have joined us here. Mr. John Lederer is here representing the Directorate of Nuclear Systems Engineering.
John, I want to thank you on behalf of the Director of Nuclear Systems Engineering at Kirtland. You saved us from any sad situations, and you've been an excellent person to work for. If not the best, you are up with the top ones that I've worked for over the years, and I can't ask for a better boss. We work in the nuclear business, as you know, and it's very dynamic. As the Air Force is changing, so is the nuclear business. And as late as last week, in the last 10 days, President Bush and President Yeltsin signed a START treaty, which is going to reduce the number of nuclear weapons considerably from what it was. And each of the treaties, the INAP treaty, the START 1, the START 2, and the numbers are coming down. It's going to take a number of years to accomplish that, but we're working it, and unfortunately, nuclear weapons probably will never go away, at least for another 50 years or more. John, I want to give you something unique. Well, first of all, I've got a poem I want to read to you. You you had a very touching poem this morning, and I like that. And I wanted to read this. This is a poem about retirement, and the author is anonymous, but I was hoping it would bring a few smiles. Goes, in savage tribes where skulls are thick and primal passions rage, they have a system sure and quick to cure the blight of age. For when a native's youth has fled and years have sapped his vim, they simply knock him in the head and put an end to him. But we in this enlightened age are built of noble stuff, and so we look with righteous rage on deeds so harsh and rough. For when a man grows old and gray, and weak and short of breath, we simply take his job away and let him starve to death. John, I think nuclear weapons are unique, and I was reminded by Jim Baird this week that they're unique, and so are a lot of other things that parallel them, and so he's right. I agree with him. But I wanted to bring something to you that was unique from the Southwest, and I have a seal for our organization, Director of Nuclear Systems Engineering, and it's a sand painting of an eagle and an atom and the mountains in the background and the blue sky. And this was designed by a Native American who works for us in our organization. His name is Leslie Murray. He's a Navajo. And I thought this would be unique, and it would be a reminder of our organization. Not been to the new museum here. It's been years since I was in the old museum over in Area C. So I went to the museum, and while I was there, and if you get bored or need something to do, you should go to the museum and remind you of a lot of the things you've done over the years, because it's really an eye-opener for me. I ran into a man who's retired. He's been retired for some 16 years, and he told me about a designer here in Dayton that designed retirees' money clip. And being an engineer like you, and as General Ferguson said this morning, engineers are innovative. Within 15 minutes after I left the museum, I developed and produced a retiree's money clip for you. And this is it. You've probably all seen it since it was developed right here in Dayton. It's a penny with a tab, a beer can tab. Let's spin it over. Barbara, I'd like you to come forward, if you would, please. Along with the uniqueness of the nuclear weapons and the sand painting, I wanted something else for Barbara that was from the Southwest. And I have this gift for you, and I'd like you to open it. It's called Nambe ware. It's produced in a little town near Santa Fe, and it's a very dense material. It's not plutonium. It looks like silver. It's called Nambe, and it's unique to the Southwest. It's very, very creative. It looks like silver, but doesn't tarnish like silver.
Thank you very much. Isn't that
At this time, we are going to call upon members of the home
about Colonel Madden, I think about two things, and General Ferguson touched on one of them today. Colonel Madden touched on the other, so you're going to think we had the same speechwriter. That's not the case. I think about how much Colonel Madden loves airplanes, how much he loves the Air Force. During the last year, I've worked for him every day, and I go into his office, and we'll be going over business, and an airplane will fly by, and he'll jump up, run over to the window, and he'll crane his neck like this, and he'll watch. He'll turn around and look at me and say, God, I love airplanes. And then, 5 o'clock hits, retreat sounds, the flag's going down. He stands in his office and he looks out at the flag and he watches the retreat. And I thought, boy, here's a guy who's been around the Air Force so long. He absolutely loves airplanes. He used to tell me war stories about being a maintenance officer. When here I am, first lieutenant, I'm in charge of 900 guys, fixing airplanes. He said, I love fixing airplanes. He talked about a squadron commander, the pilot wouldn't fly the plane. The squadron commander said, get out of there. He jumped in and flew a 24-hour mission or 18-hour mission. He had been working all night. I mean, he just absolutely loved fixing airplanes, absolutely loved airplanes. So that's the first thing I thought of. The second thing I think of is how much he cares about people. A lot of people come in to see him. He's obviously, everybody knows, he's very approachable. People get on his calendar just to go in and just talk to him. He never sits at his desk and talks to you sitting in a chair. He gets out behind his desk and he goes to a table. And he sits across from you. He makes you feel comfortable when you're there. And he starts a dialogue with you. He listens to your concerns. He makes a decision. Off you go. And then he comes and he looks at the two secretaries and I and say, well, what's next? He absolutely loves dealing with people, working with people. And I couldn't think of anything more fitting. No, I'm sorry. I've known him for 27 years and 10 months. But I do know that by loving airplanes, by loving to fix airplanes, by caring about people and knowing how to lead, you get to where he got to today. And I can't think of anything, a better way to say thank you to a person who so honorably served the Air Force and the United States than to give him a symbol of our country, the United States flag. Sir, this flag was flown over the U.S. Capitol in your honor. Dr. Halpin, you're up.
This morning, Ferguson described the unique characteristics of John Madden. He then pointed out that John's emergence as the technical leader he had was an actual fulfillment of a successful professional career and the consequence of his unique characteristics. We, of course, contrary to what Harry said, we're thrilled that John was established as our director. John is unique. What General Ferguson didn't point out, that John is also natural in the lineage of the directors of the unit. We've had a long history. Our directors are all-star cast of people who have made the Air Force. And outside the entrance of our office, we have a plaque which denotes each of the individuals that has held this position. That plaque has never been presented to a departing director. We are still thrilled with John Madden after his tenure, and as a special gesture to John of our love and affection, we would like to present that plaque to him with his name at the bottom of the plaque as the latest.
you've gotten some pretty nice gifts. I have to admit, though, when John Letter was going on and on about how tough it is in the nuclear business, for a minute there, I thought he was going to give you a WA-80 war game. One thing I was impressed about when I saw the slideshow was how much John Madden looked like John Madden for all these years. There was a special photo of significance in there. I think it was about the third one, and this is particularly important to Jim Fain. I mean, this is really, pay attention, Jim. That was a photo where John was standing next to his tricycle and he was crying. Well, the reason was he's crying. He hadn't fallen off the tricycle. His father had just come up to him and said, "Son, you're going to the staff." Now, Les Smithers kind of alluded to how John ended up in EN, and there was a little bit of preamble before he ended up. But John Madden actually ended up working for me first as the deputy flight systems in the F-16 SPO. I've been over the F-16 SPO for, I don't know, a couple hundred years. I think it was 3 or 4 years. And I finally gotten the propulsion guy that I wanted, and I had a group of people in there that was really good. And things were starting to settle down. It was getting to be nice. And they called me up and said, "Hey, would you like to have a deputy?" And I said, "Well, you know, I really don't like deputies. I kind of hate deputies. They get in my way all the time." And they said, "Wrong answer. You want to interview some of these people." So we went through the normal interview process. Well, this Lieutenant Colonel John Madden comes down, and I interviewed this guy. And I said to myself, "Oh, you got to have this guy. This guy's good. You really need to pick him up." Now, I'm going to tell you a side of John now that is really, you wouldn't have expected it. But this is the diabolical side of John Madden. So I'm down there in the F-16. This is July of '80. July of '80. Things were starting to come along pretty nicely. I called up the office and I said, "Yeah, this man looks good. I'll take him as my deputy." So that's all done deal. About, it couldn't have been 10 minutes later, the phone rings. I pick up the phone. I said, "Hello." The other end of the phone says, "John, this is Fred." I said, "Oh, how are you today, sir?" I said, "I'm fine. I want you to come over here and work for me." Well, I had just gotten this place straight now. I got a couple of U-14s. The propulsion division's running great. I got a new deputy coming in. I mean, I'm looking forward to a nice job. So I says, "I don't think I want to." Wrong answer. So unbeknownst to me, the word leaked out to the rest of the staff in the F-16 SPO that I was history. I was going to go over and do what ended up being the B-2 source selection. But they found out that I was history. Well, I had about a 2-week TDY. I had a week over in Norway and a week in London to do some stuff. That was tough. I think it was the last little tidbit Fred was willing to throw to me. But anyway, I come back from this 2-week TDY, and I don't think anybody knows, see? I mean, and I'm about 2 or 3 days from leaving the place, and I really think, so I walk into the place pretty innocent. My office was in the back of the floor plan. So I come in through the front door, and I say hi to this guy, and hi to that guy, and hi to the other person, and I'm walking back through there. Well, I had a nice office back there. I mean, it was pretty plush. I had pictures hanging on the wall. I even had an aquarium. I had a fish tank with real fish in it. I mean, this was nice. Nice little office. I walk back into my office, and there isn't even a paper clip on the floor. There is dust. Well, this guy had taken everything, desk, pictures, aquarium, everything, and stored it down in one of the rooms. I mean, it took 2 or 3 days before I found this thing. So this guy has a diabolical streak, don't you ever forget it. I mean, so be aware. Be aware that John Madden will get you one of these days. So I've had a unique pleasure in EN. I mean, one of the few people that have been with John in all 3 capacities of work. John not only worked for me, and not only did I work for him, but we worked together. And John is a man that I enjoyed working with over all these times. A man of principle, the utmost professional, and I would have to say, John, that of all the people that I've been around, you're the finest man that ever worked for me. man that I ever worked for, but most importantly, the finest man I ever worked with. And I really cherish our relationship. And I do have a special gift for you. When I ended up in the office over there in October of '89, 2.5 years ago, well, this has been the best 10 years of my life, really. John and I ended up right away heading off and sharing a special vision for what we wanted to see for engineering. John Madden does not see just to the end of the office. John Madden does not see just across the street. John Madden sees all the way over the ridge and can tell you what's going to happen as a result of doing something. He can tell you what's going to happen next week. He can tell you what's going to happen next year. He can tell you what's going to happen in the future as a result of your decision. John truly had vision, not only the compassion about people that we've all heard about, but I want to tell you that John had vision. And we shared a special vision even back in October of '89, and we implemented that in renaming engineering and starting a trip that will last forever, in renaming engineering from Deputy of Engineering to DCS, Integrated Engineering and Technical Management. I think we made a significant step to provide leadership with what General Lowe and General Ferguson want as a change in philosophy, as a new way of doing business, and a way of integrating all of our technical skills together with not only ourselves, but with our business, and to provide leadership within ASD and the leadership with our contractors. So this is a special gift, John. It's a symbol of your vision, something that I want you to keep close to you. It's not only the squadron plaque, but it's a squadron plaque that says DCS, Integrated Engineering and Technical Management. John, it was absolutely a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, I would like to introduce General Ferguson. Oh,
I'm coming first.
I got it wrong, okay.
The ASD ladies have a tradition. This morning, my husband spoke of the strengths of John's arches and bridges. Philosophical, not anatomical or dental. This evening, as I present the traditional gift from the ASD ladies, I sing the praises of Barbara's circles and arcs. Her circles of friends and family, where she's added strength and support. Her arcs of responsibility and commitment to the community of her church, the OWC, and the ladies of EN. You have been a keystone, and you will leave a void. Godspeed, and God love you.
The time is 1983, and it's the Maverick Program Office, and it's been kind of a tough month for Myers-Briggs ISTJ sort of person, because program director has been challenging his chief engineer with some very illogical tasks. Things like the OSD countermeasures group wanted to test the Maverick missile in a very well-defined scenario so that everybody knew precisely how to counter the missile. When you attack a tank, you had to announce over radio to the guy who was driving the tank precisely when the missile was going to launch, so therefore you knew about what time it was going to impact, to the second, and you were going to launch a flare. So the program director obviously went to the chief engineer and said, we got to defeat the missile. What kind of tricks do you have up your sleeve, and how are we going to do that? And after a lot of debate about this, we sent an affidavit to OSD and said, we give up. We want to save the $200,000 missile. What's the next test you want us to do? And then we had another challenge, because at that time we were really kind of struggling to get a couple good missiles shot. And it was significant to some money coming out of the Pentagon. And we had a boss who really didn't want us to shoot a missile. We kept telling him that we needed data for the engineers to improve the missile, and our boss kept saying, can you guarantee that the missile's going to hit the target? And we were having a little bit of trouble answering the question. And so I turned to my chief engineer and I said, well, how do we shoot this missile without impacting the target? And so we explored options like putting a parachute on the missile, launching out of range. We even talked about a giant bungee cord. And the solution to that was we had a change of bosses. And they let us go ahead and shoot the missile anyway. And those are sort of the things I remember about John Madden, because he walked into the office after those experiences, and he was obviously fairly distraught because we were not exercising his ISTJ sensing thinking aspects of his personality. And I decided that he needed a vacation, and so I suggested that he go over to this little hideaway place in West Virginia. And he said, well, what do you do when you get there? And particularly because he had young children at the time. And I said, well, John, you're an engineer. If all else fails, you go down to the stream and you build a dam. And so over the years, I have always been able to tell when the frustration levels were getting very high for John Madden, because a new dam would appear in the stream by our cabin in the hills in West Virginia. Well, that's the lighter side that I remember, John. I really came to the podium just to say a very simple thank you, and to send you off with that, once again, one of those really never to be forgotten squadron flags. Just one more. This one is from the Aeronautic Systems Division. So, thank you. And Barbara? Well, this is really special, John. At every FMR that we functional management review that we've been holding now for about the last year, John keeps asking me where his certified acquisition professional certificate is. And so, John, I've been saving, okay, to present to you tonight. And so here it is, Department of the Air Force Certified Acquisition Professional. You see it?
Right,
John
I
C.
see it.
Madden, Level 3. And
Level
signed.
3!
Well, we have a wonderful tradition at AFD, and that is to give a retiring couple a right flyer, and it's under a little domed piece of glass. And I think it's probably the most treasured memento that anybody departs this place with, and it's a pleasure for me to offer it to the two of you. I know whenever you look at this, you'll think back on the fond memories of Greg Patterson Air Force Base and all these wonderful people who have shared this evening. So, Patsy, good luck, and whatever you may be doing in the next year.
I don't want to take too much time, but I would just like to thank each and every one of you for coming not only this morning, but tonight to honor my very best friend. John and I dated for 8 years and have been married, will be married 28 years this July. So we always like to say that we've known each other 36 years, and we think that's pretty wonderful. Today has just been absolutely fantastic for us and our family. It's sort of, it reaches right up there with getting married and having our children, and it's just been fantastic. And I would make a recommendation to anyone retiring: have your ceremony in the morning, have your family and friends all day long, and just have a ball. We have had the very best time, and it's just been wonderful having our family and everyone here, and especially these wonderful friends that we've accumulated over the years. And I guess if I can say anything about the Air Force, the very best part of it has been the people. We gather them in, they become our family when we're away from home, and we've kept them as part of our family, and that's just absolutely wonderful. Some friends, come and go, others stay with you forever, but all of you here tonight have left footprints on our heart, and that's where we're going to carry you from now on. And we do thank you much. This last couple of years in the end is, I'd like to leave you on a light note, because I'm going to cry if I don't. We've enjoyed John and Barbara Griffin, and part of the fun has been because we're both John and Barb's. And I would call the office, and I usually recognize Linda's voice and say, "Hi, Linda, this is Barb. Is John in?" And I called one day when John was supposed to pick up a part for something, and it didn't sound like Linda. And I thought, well, I'm not going to call her Linda in case it isn't Linda, and I couldn't remember the secretary's name. So she said, "Hello, this is EN Engineering." And I said, "Hi, is John there?" And she said, "May I ask who's calling?" And I said, "Well, this is Barb." And she said, "Gee, you don't sound like yourself." And I said, "Gosh, you don't sound like you either." And she said, "Well, do you have a cold?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I've been a little stuffy." So we went on with our conversation. I said, "Please tell John that the part is in and he needs to pick it up in such and such a lady pool or whatever." And she said, "Great." Well, John Griffin, now I was talking to his secretary. So John walks in the office and she said, "John, you got a call. You're supposed to pick up this part." He said, "That's not my Barb." So anyway, it's been wonderful. We love you all. Please, please keep in touch with us. The Air Force is grateful. We sure are looking forward to this new phase. We love you. Thanks a lot, and God bless.
Saw what the closing remarks are here. It says drive safe. I'd like to tell you the real story. There's been a lot of things alleged here tonight, and I'd like to set the record straight. I have had a love affair with EN and Wright Patterson since 1978, and I worked hard to get here. It took 14 years to get to Wright Patterson. My home was Cincinnati, and they had me on a north-south rotation. They'd send me north in the winter, south in the summer. And when I was at Oklahoma City, I found out there was a thing called ASIP, and that there were really engineers in the Air Force. And I wanted to be one of those, but they wouldn't let me do that. But I did learn the secret, and what I did was, there was a person who was in Palace Log, which was a logistics group at Randolph, who, before he really sent you on the bed assignment, he sent you home. And what I did was I volunteered to go to Germany. Was going to Air Command and Staff, and he said, "You need to volunteer for somewhere overseas that you want to go, otherwise you'll go someplace you don't." So I volunteered for Germany, and I was there in Air Command and Staff about a month, and I called and I said, "I need to know where my assignment is." And he said, "Well, where are you supposed to go?" And I said, "I'm supposed to go to Germany." He said, "Well, let me check." And he came back in about 5 minutes, and he said, "I'm sorry, we can't send you to Germany. We've got to send you to Wright Pat. They need you at Wright Pat." And I said, "I don't know if I want to go." "No, got to have it to Wright Pat." He said, "I'll take it." And that's how I got to Wright Pat. And I was in the 4950th, a little-known secret in the Air Force. I mean, it is a little-known secret. Great place, beautiful place. I took the second trip to Dakar, Senegal, with Mike Hall, who was the task force commander. We flew there just before Christmas in 1978. Left Barbara with the babies, destitute for a month. And we went over there and sat on the beach. It was a topless beach in Dakar, Senegal. And we sang Christmas carols. And had a great time. It was a Trident launch, I think it was, and then there was a satellite being launched. And that's how I learned to enjoy the 4950. And then I came back, and shortly after that, they sent me to Palmdale and Edwards to figure out whether we could move the wing to Edwards. This was called Ave Pioneer. This was also in that same year. So I was off for another month, enjoying sunny California while Barb was home with the babies. And boxes, we really hadn't unpacked yet. And then we got a notice in the mail. We were there about a year, and I finally made squadron commander. We got this thing, this RIP, they send you from personnel, and it said, you have been selected for engineering crossflow. And I said, what's that mean? And I called up personnel, and they said, well, what we want you to do is go over and get a job in ALD. And General Poe was trying to upgrade the PRAM program, and he needed some engineers. So I went over and I talked to the PRAM program, and they said, well, we want you to be a self-starter. We want you to get, we don't know what we want you to do, but we want you to get in there and do it. And I mean, we need a real go-getter to go do this thing. And I said, that's kind of dumb. I said, here, I'm part of Systems Command, and I'm an engineer. Why don't I go to work for Systems Command? And they said, well, if you can find a job, that's fine. So I went down to EN, and I forget who was in EN at that time, and they sent me up to ENF. It was Gene Smith. Gene Smith was the Z chief up in ENF, and Bob Lorenzetti, who was at the retirement this morning, was the lieutenant colonel in charge. And he said, well, we might have something for you. We'll send you down to interview with this civilian named Griffin, down in the F-16 flight system. So I went down to interview with John Griffin. And basically I told John I'd do anything, anything to stay in Systems Command. I wanted to be an engineer. And he said, well, I'll hire you. So I came to work for John. And he told the story pretty well as it was. I think the only thing he didn't say was being his deputy is a very, very unique experience. And I was his deputy, and then Jim Bear was the chief engineer. He was the next person up. And John Griffin said, now what I want you to do is work the in-basket. And if you ever have a question, come and talk to me. And I'd be glad to tell you what to do. But you take the initiative, do what you want to do. So I started to work the in-basket, and I'd find some piece of paper that I didn't understand, and I'd go ask John. And John would say, well, wait a minute, let me go get a cup of coffee. And he would never come back. He never came back. So I finally figured out that I just do what I was supposed to do. And I had a great bunch of people working for me. So I did that, and then that was the time that what he really was going to do, he had a flight control briefing he was going to take over to Europe, to the countries, the European Mediterranean countries. Well, it turned out Farnborough was at the same time. He really wasn't on the Farnborough. And that's when Fred called and said, when John comes back, tell him to give me a call, that he's going to be leaving. And that's when we cleaned out the office, we put it all in the vault, we took, the water out of the fish tank so the fish wouldn't slosh and blueberry. And he came walking into the office, and there was a little sign that said, John, don't cry, just call Fred. And John went into the office, turned around, came back, and he says, you didn't even leave my coffee cup. And I said, no, that's the first thing I got rid of. Took over his flight system. 9 months later, Jim Bear called me. I was on an accident board, and I was in Frederick, Maryland. Tragic event, and when we lost the Orion, and I was on that airplane accident investigation, and Jim called and said, my deputy's leaving. I want you to be my deputy. And I said, I'd love to. So I came back after the end of that accident investigation, became Jim Bear's deputy. I was working hard for a month, trying to keep up with Jim Bear, and all of a sudden he comes in, he says, John, I've decided to leave. I'm going to go take a job in YY. And I've been here 6 years, and I'm going to make sure that they give me my education. I haven't gone to school in the last 6 years, and I'm going to make sure that I go to school, and I'm going to do this. Well, he walked out on me. And he didn't come back, and they didn't replace him for 7 months. So I was the chief engineer for 7 months, working for Ray Johnson. And it was a tremendous experience, and then John Brayley came in. And they finally decided who they were going to replace him with, I guess. The one thing I remember about Jim, and you'll find it out as you start to work for Jim, is that Jim is quite a taskmaster. In fact, I used to go into his office and he would give me about 15 tasks, and I would diligently write them down. And I'd go back to my cubicle and I'd call all my troops together and I'd start handing out the tasks. And I'd get about number 10, and I'd get another call. And I'd go down to the office and I'd get 5 more. And I had a heck of a time keeping up, but it was a fun challenge, and we had some real challenging times. And then I was out at Edwards. They had a thing called the B-1 that they wanted to bring out of mothballs. And it was they had 4 airplanes that they just kind of locked the hangar doors and shut up at Edwards, and they decided they wanted to fly them again. And they wanted a maintenance officer to go out and look at it. And I was out there looking at the B-1, and I got a call from Fred Rawl that said, please call. And I called Fred, and Fred said, got a job for you, John. And I said, well, what is it? He said, well, you'll be working for yourself. And I said, well, what is it? Tell me what it is. And he said, well, it's the Maverick missile. And they just fired the program manager, and they just fired the chief engineer because they failed DT&E. And he says, but it's a great job. You'll be working for yourself. And I said, Fred, it sounds like you really want me to take that job. And he says, I do. And I said, I'll take it. And that's where I went from the deputy director of the F-16 to the chief systems engineer for Maverick. And I went around and I had an interesting experience because the secretary that was there in the Maverick, I started asking people about who my secretary was. And every time I would tell them, they would start to chuckle. And her name was Lily, and she was a good soul. And John Braley, she used to work for John, and she told me about Lily. And Lily was a very nice person. It's just that she wasn't there very much. And so I knew I was in trouble. I had an IG report that was about that thick that I had to answer. And there was this brand new colonel in there as the program director, just come over from XR. His name was Tom Ferguson. So I figured, well, there was no way to go but up. It couldn't go down. We just failed DT&E. And it really was a tremendous experience. We had a lot of fun in that program. It was a small SPO, and it had a lot of tremendous people in it. And we took the program into production. We brought on the second source. And then General Ferguson put me in for a program with Motorola. And I had a hardship tour for 4 months in Fort Lauderdale from March through June of 1984. And that was a tremendous experience for me. Went up to Systems Command, had to pay my penance, and was promoted to Colonel. And about a year after I pinned on Colonel, I was working for General Nelson, and we were working the budget. I was a budget officer. And I did the J panel, which was all the money for Systems Command. And it was just a thankless job. Every time you get it put together and you'd send it to somebody, they'd tear it apart and start over. And I finally woke up and I said, you know, I've really worked hard to get where I am, and what have I got left? What am I going to do next? You know, and do I want to take that next step? And I really decided at that point in time that, first of all, I wanted to make sure that when I got through with this career, I had a family. I wanted a wife and I wanted my children with me. And I'd seen people who had lost that in the Air Force. I'd seen officers' sons overdose on drugs and those type of things. And I decided that what I really wanted to do was what I wanted to do, something that was fun. And I had a target, and that was EN. I wanted to be EN. So I saw Fred Raleigh was there at TDY, and I said, I'd like to come back. And he said, well, maybe we can find you a job. So I interviewed with Pete Odgers. I think it was in '86, and probably about May or June of '86. And he said, yeah, we've got a job for you. And my boss wouldn't let me go. So I pleaded with him. I kept talking to him and saying, I really got to go. I've got to go back to Wright-Patterson. I want to go back. And he said, I finally met him in the bathroom at Andrews, and I said, boss, I got to leave. And he says, John, you can't go back. But he let me go back, and I came back in February of 1987, and I went to the B-1, and Pete wasn't there anymore. It had already changed. At that time, General Harbour had taken over. And I really admired General Harbour. He was a tremendous individual, one that I really enjoyed working for. He had a great philosophy and really taught me a lot, and we did some great things in that program. And then at the end of that time, when General Harbour left, I decided I wanted to change, and I went down because I really was posturing myself for EN. I wanted to be an EN and work with Fred. And so I came down to SD, which was an experiment at ASD. A lot of people didn't like it. Didn't like the organizational concept. It was new and different. And I went to work with Jack Stone, and when we first sat down, that's whose picture was in the middle of my program. It was Jack Stone. Little joke there. But I went to work for Jack and really enjoyed that experience and working with people. It was a different concept. It was frustrating. It was frustrating for a lot of people. And then finally, when Ron Radford was getting to retire, I was in the club one day and I ran into General Lowe, and it was just after an offsite. And he made a comment to me. He says, "You may be on the next one." And my heart soared because I had an idea that maybe I was going to be selected to be EN, which is what I really wanted. And that was in June of 1989. And I came up to EN and I was just overjoyed because I really wanted to work with Fred and learn as much as I could. And I walked into the office and I looked at that plaque that you saw on the wall, and I looked at it and I said, "You know, there's only one more slot left on that plaque. And that's the last plate that will fit on that plaque." And I joked at the time and I said, "I bet I'm the last one for a while." And I told him at that time that I wanted that plaque when I retired. Now the same thing happened to me that happened to me before, and that was in November I was on the ATF independent review team, and we were down at GE, and I got a call from Fred. Fred said, "John, I'm putting in my papers." And my heart fell. It really did, because I was brand new on the job. And really, I said, "What am I going to do? You know, this is the repeat of everything." So I really hated that day. I guess that was really a low point in my life. But I know Fred had put us all into EN, and it was probably time for him to retire. And I was flattered that I was the one that was there when he decided that he was comfortable enough to retire. So I really appreciated that confidence that he placed in me. Since that time, there's been a lot of water under the bridge. We've done a lot of things. EN has changed significantly over these last 3 years, and really in the last 2 years, as we ventured into total quality, which is definitely the right thing to do. We have changed the complexion, we've changed the way we're thinking, we've changed the way we're organized, and we've really changed the whole complexion of where we're going. I think it is the right thing to do. It needs to be supported. We need to step forward. We need to produce the weapon systems that we're going to need to make sure that we stay free. And that's the whole reason we exist. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight and for being with me at this time in my life. I appreciate each and every one of you. I've enjoyed working with you and appreciating the support that you've given me. And thank you so much. And good night.
Everyone had a good time this evening. Very enjoyable evening from our perspective. Wanted to thank Stephanie and Fred Board for all the work. And like to do one thing. In your program is a poem. And at this time, Fred Ward is going to read that poem. It means an awful lot to all of us maintainers.
Remembering the forgotten mechanic. Throughout the history of world aviation, many names have come to the fore. Great deeds of the past and our memory will last. They're joined by more and more. When men first stated his labor and quest to conquer the skies, he was designer, mechanic, and pilot, and he built a machine that would fly. But somehow the order got twisted, and then in the public's eye, the only man that could be seen was the man who knew how to fly. The pilot was everyone's hero. He was brave, he was bold, he was grand, as he stood by his battered old biplane with goggles and helmet in hand. To be sure, these pilots all earned it. To fly, you have to have guts. And they blazed their name in the Hall of Fame with wings with wire struts. But for each of these flying heroes, there were thousands of little renown, and these were the men who worked on the planes but kept their feet on the ground. We all know the name of Lindbergh, and we've read of his flight to fame, but think if you can of his maintenance man. Can you remember his name? And think of our wartime heroes, Gabreski, Jabara, and Scott. Can you tell me the names of their crew chiefs? 1,000 to 1, you cannot. Now, pilots are highly trained people, and wings are not easily won. But without the work of the maintenance man, our pilots would march with a gun. So when you see a mighty jet aircraft as they mark their way through the air, the grease-stained man with a wrench in his hand is the one who put him there.
Now, for the final act, I told you before, John had two favorite songs. The first one we played earlier during the slideshow. We'd like to have you all join. The words are in the program, and we will play the Air Force song. So please stand and join us in the song, in our song. Drive safely.
You knew that was coming.